Hey team, today we are going to go over how to fill out an Avid, what the parameters are of what you should be putting on an Avid, and we're going to check out two different ways to fill it out. One's going to be via Glide, which is an app or a web link that you can use, or you can also use zip forms. That's your second option. Let's go ahead and drill right into it. So let's share screen. So with zip forms, you're going to have the regular zip form templates that you have for your sellers. The Avid should be included as one of them. So when you come into zip forms to fill out an Avid, as you can see, it's going to be pretty blank, and then we'll fill in the information as we go. The other product that I was telling you about, Glide, let me show you what that looks like. Let's try that again, shall we? Sharing this screen. Boom, there we go. This is Glide. And it's a really quick and easy way for you to fill out Avids while you're out on the field. Before we get into that, let's go over what the Avid means. The Avid is the Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure. The reason that you need to fill out an Avid right when you get into the transaction or when you get the listing, you want to do this within 3 to 5 days of either getting the listing or getting into contract. Here's why. It is considered a disclosure. So like you know, with any new disclosure information, you have a 5-day rescission period. If the buyer receives it way late in the game, then the buyer may back out because of your Avid. So it's incredibly important that you fill out your Avid, again, within 3 to 5 days or going into contract, or with your listing, you want to have that done before you hit the market. The Avid is not intended to be an inspection. It's not an inspection. It is your visual interpretation of what's going on the property. That being said, the Avid needs to be super subjective. Think of yourself, there's two different ways that you can think of yourself. One's the right way, one's the wrong way when completing an Avid. You can be a storyteller or you can be a detective. We want to be a detective. We don't want our Avids to go on for days and days and days and days. And we're not trying to write a novel here. We're giving basic information about the property, super subjective. Let me explain what I mean. A writer, a novelist would go in and let's say there's a crack on the wall. A novelist would say, a large crack on the wall is appearing to be gaping and it needs to be filled in, and it's a 45-degree angle. That's not what we're trying to do in the Avid. Here's what the detective would say. Crack on east wall, period. That's it. We're not telling the buyers or the public with the Avid, we're not telling them, here's what needs to be done. No, you are only pointing out certain facts about the property. Anything that you can visually see, anything that you can smell, smoke, animal stink, you know? If it just has a weird smell, you could put that in there. An unknown odor, right? Not, again, the detective and the novelist were saying, unknown odor detected. Not, it smells like maybe the seller had 15 cats in here that were maybe all mountain cats. No, unknown odor, period, right? That being said, let's go showcase what the Avid looks like. So I'm going to show it to you what it looks like on zip forms so that I can go through the document. And then on Glide, I'll show you how to fill out a basic transaction on there. Okay, so at this point, you should be able to see my zip forms Avid. Alrighty, as you can see, this is for use by an agent when the transfer disclosure statement is required and when a seller is exempt from completing the TDS. So no matter what transaction, this Avid is to be completed. You want to make sure that you have this entire section filled out, this first section. If the property is a duplex, a triplex, or any other plexes, make sure to pop that in here with this. Make sure that you also have your broker name. As you can see here, they talk about what the Avid is. Again, we are not inspectors. We are agents stating what we see about the property. We are not required to go into areas that are not reasonably and normally accessible. Don't go into attics. Don't go into basements that you have to crawl into. If it's a basement that you can walk into, sure, pop yourself right on in there. But if you need a ladder or if you need to crawl to get in there, no, you do not need to do that. Any areas that are offside of the property, clearly this is just an Avid about this specific property. We are not to pull public records or permits. And we are also not required to, in common areas, we're not required to go check out those common areas. So if it's a condo or a townhome, you don't need to also include an Avid of, say, the pool house, the tennis courts, things like this. There are also limitations because our duty is limited to conducting a reasonable and competent visual inspection and reasonably and normally accessible areas of the property. There are several things that we will not do. And those are not exclusive to just this, but here are some of those things that we will not do. We will not climb onto the roof or the attic. We will not move or look behind furniture. So if the property is staged, I'll show you where to add property is staged, right? You do not pick up rugs. You do not touch plants to check if it's wet under there. The exterior, again, we will not go beneath the property, inspect beneath the property, climb up or down a hillside, look behind bushes or shrubbery. We will not operate appliances. It is not your job to turn on appliances. That's what the home inspector is for. I want to make sure that's incredibly clear. You do not go turn on appliances. You do not turn on the heater. That is not your job. Size of property or improvements, we are not required to measure square footage, nor should you ever measure square footage. Environmental hazards, we will not, determine if the property has mold, asbestos, and other things. Again, we will not pull public permits, or inspect public records. We can hand public records to a buyer or to a seller, but we are not to pull permits and we are not to investigate those public records. Lastly, analysis of agent disclosures. For any items disclosed as a result of the Avid or by other agents, the agent will not provide an analysis or determine the cause or source of the disclosed matter, nor determine the cost of any repair. What that means is that, again, you should not be saying there's a crack and it needs to be repaired by doing this. No. Alrighty, fantastic. So again, our inspection is not intended to take place of any sort of inspection, nor is it a substitute for complete disclosure from the seller. Let's keep moving on. Buyers should review all disclosures obtained from the seller. Have your buyer make sure that they read this. They should not just be reading out the items that you filled out. You should be telling your buyer, hey, Mrs. and Mrs. Buyer, please make sure that you are reading these entire documents. Alrighty, fantastic. Moving on to page 2. If the property is a duplex or any other plex, any other income producing property or things like this, make sure to have that included in here, which unit you are inspecting. Again, make sure that you have your broker information in here. The inspection date and time should also be included, and what the weather conditions are. Again, no need to write a novel, just boom, boom, here are the facts. If there's anyone present on the property, please make sure to include them as well. This is one of the documents. I got to take myself off of share to explain this. This is one of the documents that if you do end up going to court, if your clients take you to court, if the other side takes the other side to court, the Avid is one of the forms that goes up on the big screen for the jury or the mediators or the judge, I should say, to see. So it's so important that you treat this as if it were maybe at some point going to go on a big screen in court. That's how important this document is. Let's go back to sharing screen. Fantastic. This is based on a reasonably competent and diligent visual inspection of the reasonably and normally accessible parts of the property. Again, they're stating this 3 times. So don't be crawling under the house, okay? All right, entryway, living room, dining room. These are the rooms that we're gonna talk about. Other room, if there is a loft, if there is an attached ADU, things like this can be included in here. These other items, if there's an office that doesn't have windows or things like this can also be included here. You can also say if it's you see how there's only 4 bedrooms, or excuse me, 3 bedrooms here. As we know in Cali, there are homes that have more than 3 bedrooms. So if you need to include bedroom number 4, bedroom number 5, that can also go into these other slots. And what you would do then is type in bedroom number 4, and then type in your verbiage there. Alrighty, fantastic. Let's keep rolling down to page 3. If there's, let's say there's a detached ADU, you may want to include an addendum for additional rooms and structures, parking and garage, exterior building and yard, other, we'll talk about these once we go into the Glide platform a little bit more. Other observed or known conditions that are not specified above. Let me explain what this means. So if you've sold properties in a neighborhood and you know that this neighborhood has roof rats, or if you know that on the news, you heard on Thursday, there was a gas explosion, shooting. If you feel like maybe you should disclose it, this is the place to disclose it. Other observed or known conditions not specified above. Other items that could be included are property is located in an HOA, period. You could also include if you hear the railroad, if you can smell the refinery, use your senses, don't use taste. That's gross. Why would you even think that? Okay, awesome. Let's go back to share so that you guys can see this last portion. Don't be licking walls. That's weird. Okay, this disclosure, again, 4th time they're saying it here. Competent, reasonable, reasonably and normally accessible. Make sure that you are filling out this information. This is another reminder. Not all defects are observable, right? This inspection does not include testing any system or component. This is like the air conditioning system. We are not home inspectors. We are not contractors. If the buyer fails to get inspection, the buyer is acting against the advice of our broker. If they are waiving all inspections, please make sure that you're doing a buyer inspection waiver. Watch that video as well. Alrighty, cool. And then make sure that you have buyer seller sign here. Initials here as well. I mean, that's the basic gist of it. The explanation of the zip forms version. Let's get into the Glide version because what I would like to show you is this easy way to do it. Here's the thing with zip forms. If you're filling it out on zip forms, you're probably lugging your laptop or your iPad or something like this around, right? You should do the Avid at the property. Don't take notes on your notepad and then go home and then transfer your notes into zip forms. No, do the Avid while you're at the property. Critical for you to do that. Let's go into Glide. Okay, cool. So I'm on Glide. You basically just sign up for a free account. The website is glide.com, glide.com. There, of course, are tons of other resources that you could use. This is the one that I prefer to use because I feel that it's really easy and it's free. Gotta love that. All right, let's hit new transaction. I'm just gonna type in a random transaction here for us. Primary agent, I'm gonna list myself as the primary agent. No, thank you. I would not like to upgrade. Okay, cool. Let's, for our sake of this, let's say that we're representing the buyer. Status of the transaction, this is just a nurture. We're not currently under contract. Cool. I'm gonna update that later. Okay, great. So you could, if you have a co-agent that you're working with, you could include them in here. Co-buyer broker, TC. If you include your TC, they get a copy of this right away. So I usually like to include one of my TCs in this, the TC that I'll be using for the transaction. You can also include your buyer. If you've already set up a Glide account and have input your client's name and email, you can add their info here, and then that will transfer onto your Avid once it's complete. Let's go ahead and just hit continue for the sake of this exercise. All right, cool. As you can see, there's additional things over here. I'm just going to focus on going through the Avid with you guys for now. I'm going to add a property. Hopefully it lets me just pull a random ass property. Here we go. Let's do 555 Henrietta Street in Martinez. That's our courthouse or our police department in Martinez. You could also search by the MLS number here as well. Beautiful. So now it's thinking, okay, add additional info. No, I'm going to leave this stuff blank for now. You could, again, add your buyer, add additional property information, purchase info, commission for the sake of our exercise. And usually I don't select any of this. Okay, thinking. Here we are. So now what we're going to do is, well, that just got weird. It changed around on me. Fun. Okay, let's change this to under contract. That was a new tool that they just added, I swear, in like the last month. Okay, here we go. So for the sake of the exercise, now we are under contract. Okay, babes, let's go into complete the Avid. As you can see, there are tons of other things that you can do on Glide. For this exercise, we're going to complete the Avid. And what we're going to do is use the Avid workflow. And it's going to ask you like, gosh, there used to be like a tax thing that you could do that was similar to this that would take you step by step. So is it a duplex, triplex? No. If it is, then you would select yes, clearly. It takes it a little bit of time to think. Make sure you're inputting the correct information so that you don't have to go back and do this later on. As you can see, it's now asking me what's the date, that's the time. It automatically populates this information here because I've allowed Glide to have access to my location. You don't have to, you can pop that in. For the sake of the exercise, we're gonna say not applicable because there's no one else around. Property observations. This is where, remember on zip forms, let me show you. On zip forms, they had these blanks, right? Those are the property observations that we're talking about. Okay, so we're gonna add new, and as you can see, it's giving us options. So for the entryway, you would select that, and you can start typing in here. Things that you may wanna know are cracks, if there's like marks on the wall. If it looks like a watermark, you do not put watermark. You simply put discoloration or mark on wall. You don't need to say mark the size of my hand, a mark, da, 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 da. No, here's the thing. So I'm just going to say mark on east wall. Then what I can do is I can take a picture of what I'm talking about. So for now, I'm just going to hit save. And what I'm going to show you now is what those photos are going to look like. Lots of screen sharing, so excuse the back and forth. Okay, cool. So this is an Avid that I had prepared through Glide. So this is what it looks like once it's filled out. And then you can see here, it has see attached living room number 1-1 JPEG, right? So what that means is if I scroll down, entry number 1-1.jpg, it's going to show me this imperfection here. This was like super chewed up. So what I said for it is weather stripping on front door shows signs of wear and tear. Period. Not, I think it needs to be replaced. That is not your job to say that. Your job is to focus on what is there that you visually see, you smell. Let me give you another example here. Hall leading to the bedroom, nail holes and scuff marks on wall, smart thermostat and doorbell noted. That does not mean, and then again, see here, see attached, da, 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 da. This does not mean that I turned on that smart switch or that smoke. Oh my gosh, the thermostat. I did not turn on the thermostat. Let me scroll down to show you what the picture looks like. Here we go, the hallway. And as you can see, there were marks there and there all over the place. And then I took a picture of the doorbell and the thermostat. The reason that we like to have photos is because we're not just taking your word on it anymore. You've given us evidence of what you've seen, right? I hope that that's really super clear. You could do an Avid without photos. It's honestly, it's pretty common practice to see that, but you're not the common agent. You want to go above and beyond, so include pictures. The way you do that is through using programs like Glide. Speaking of Glide, let's go back to it. So you can keep adding items here. Make sure that you go into the garage. If it is full of seller's belongings, that's what you say. Garage is impacted with seller's belongings, unable to inspect, period. That's it. Let's say that you do an Avid and you do it before a renovation is done. So we meet the seller on January 1st. Then on January 3rd, I come in and I do my Avid, but the seller is getting it painted. They're going to put in a new kitchen, new flooring. What I could do is I could fill out my Avid with the first Avid. Then I would fill out a second Avid dated whenever the work was done. It's February 18th. So you can have two Avids, or you could wait until the work is done and have one Avid complete. That is something that you would want to ask your broker about how they would want you to address that. Okay, fantastic. So last thing is you again want to make sure that you are pointing out anything that you visually see on the property, anything that you smell. I mean, if you feel the floor sloping down, like in a lot of old homes, you can feel floors kind of sloping up or down. Put that in there. Floor feels as if it is sloping, and then take a photo. Do not take a level and put the level down. That's not your job. You're not an inspector. You're not a foundation inspector. You're not there to see how level the floor is. make sure that once you fill out your Glide Avid, that you have double checked it. What I typically do is I walk around, I use the Glide app on my phone. I walk around with my headphones in and I make notes of things, right? So let me give you an example of a note that we would make. Oh, hopefully that didn't just go weird on us. Okay. Scuff marks on wall, period. Not multiple scuff marks that look like they had been covering something and now that they need to be fixed. No, scuff marks on wall, period. Other items that we could note in this room are chalkboard on wall in lieu of wallpaper. Corkboard on wall in lieu of wallpaper. I typically also like to include which wall it is, right? Is it the east, northwest, or south facing wall? The way that you can find that out is bust out your compass on your phone and find out what wall it is that you're looking at. If you have any additional questions, concerns, or remarks about Avids, don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me an email, cynthia@tpgrealtor.com, or hit me up on Slack if you are with Team Fast. Have an amazing day. And remember, you are not a novelist, you are a detective.